Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of A Week in Watches, a weekly look back at interesting watch news, releases, and stories. I'm Zach Weiss, co-founder of Warner Wound, and I'll be your host today. It's the end of August, and despite things being, pretty quiet around here, the watch world was all abuzz with Geneva Watch Days, which pulled the Swiss watch industry out of vacation. We have releases from... hold on. What? I'm getting contact on the emergency line. They did Tudor Pelagos. Okay, right. I'll get to that right away. Okay, well, change of plans, everyone. We have some breaking news. But before we get to it, this week's sponsor is the Wind Up Watch Shop, currently having a Labor Day sale where you can get up to 15% off select watches, straps, EDC, and more. That's going on through September 7th, so please head to windupwatchshop.com and, pick up something cool. Okay, we're going to start off with the release of the week. Tudor crashes Geneva Watch Days. I'm going to take this stupid thing out. Sorry for the campiness. I thought it would be fun. Tudor sure knows how to take the spotlight, though not technically part of Geneva Watch Days, though I'm not really sure what makes a brand part of Geneva Watch Days. They're based in Geneva. They make watches. It's a day. They dropped a major release this week with the Pelagos 39. And they kind of stole the show, to be honest. So you've likely already seen it, unless you've wisely avoided watch news for the last week. But Tudor has basically made the watch that many of us have been dreaming of and asking for a reality, which feels like a bit of a refrain this year for Tudor. They've taken their stalwart Pelagos line, and shrunk it down to 39 millimeters. But before getting into the new watch, I think it's worth a quick look back at the Pelagos in general. So way back in 2012, a year before Tudor was actually officially available in the US market, which is terrifyingly a whole decade ago, because I remember that pretty clearly, Tudor announced a duo of divers, one for professionals and the other, for the rest of us, I guess vintage sub fans. Those watches were the Pelagos and the Black Bay. And while the Black Bay ended up being the crowd favorite, the Pelagos was one hell of a watch. It's all brushed titanium. It had a 500-meter water resistance, a helium escape valve for the saturation divers out there. Like I said, this was their professional model. It also had a ceramic bezel insert, spring-loaded auto-adjusting clasp, an aggressive and thoroughly modern style, yet it paid direct tribute to perhaps the most iconic Tudor watch of all time, which is the Snowflake Sub, which featured squared markers as well as matching snowflake hands, whereas the Black Bay always had round markers and a snowflake hand. It's a truly fantastic watch. I've actually had many experiences with them, but there was one caveat, which is that it was on the big side at 42 by 50 millimeters long. And I wouldn't call this a problem per se. For many people, that's actually spot on size. It's not really that huge. And at the time, 10 years ago, 42 millimeter divers were just a lot more common. In fact, sub 40 millimeter divers are really quite rare. Over the years, they've released a handful of new models. They went from the ETA 2824 to their in-group Kinese movements, which also added some text to the dial and a little bit of thickness to the case originally. And then there was the still surprising and quite stylish LHD model, or left-hand drive. They did it before Rolex, can you believe it? And then back in November 2021, just about a year ago, they launched the FXD, which was created in collaboration with the Marine Nationale. That was the biggest departure from the original Pelagos so far. It had fixed lugs, which is what the FXD comes from, a countdown bezel, unidirectional bezel at that too, a new shade of blue, a thinner body as well, and a lower water resistance at 200 meters. However, it was designed for shallow water maneuvers, so the extra 300 meters wasn't really necessary for the intention of the design. But it remained at the same 42 millimeters. It just kind of seemed like the Pelagos was just going to be a 42 millimeter watch, and that was its niche in the Tudor catalog. The more vintage inclined Black Bays got the 58 and Pro model at 39 millimeters, but the Pelagos would just be larger. I genuinely did not think they would scale it down. Well, as is usual with Tudor, I was wrong. The newly announced Pelagos 39 is exactly that, a 39mm Pelagos, but with some notable differences as well. It's still all brushed titanium, it's still got the ceramic bezel with full lume markers, it's got ceramic molded lume plots, which is actually new, just like the Black Bay Pro, but they're square, as they should be on this model. Obviously the size is different, it's 39mm by 47 by 11.8mm, which are really fantastic proportions. Basically, it's the same size as a Black Bay 58, but in titanium and with chrome guards. The water resistance is now 200 meters, also the same as a Black Bay. And the dial and bezel went from the matte of the original Pelagos to a sun ray finished. They also dropped the helium escape valve. It still comes with both a titanium bracelet and a rubber strap with end links. It's not a spring-loaded clasp, however, it is their T-fit clasp and it has a dive extension. Also, the little cutouts for the markers in the chapter ring are gone. That was a detail I always personally liked. I think it's not something everybody was a fan of, but I think it really always added to the more modern style of the Pelagos, which I appreciated. Specs-wise, it's basically the same as the Black Bay 58. Also features a similar movement, the MT5400, with a clear, material difference and a more modern look. I would say it seems as though Tudor tried to make it a bit more of a consumer-friendly model while also scaling it down. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think it's gorgeous and it's very exciting. It's the Tudor many of us really have been waiting for. I'd say it's the true spiritual successor of the original Snowflakes, which, as I said before, are iconic. It has enough vintage Tudor DNA for style and authenticity, but it's also a very modern-looking watch. There's no like vintage pastiche here, which, the Black Bay 58, particularly the first one with its gold kind of gilt surrounds, sort of can get claimed as having. I'm just not really sure what makes a Pelagos and a Black Bay a Black Bay. What do you think? Let us know. Regardless, it's going to be a wild success, further securing Tudor's dominance in the $3,000 to $5,000 price point, which brings me to the price. With both bracelet and rubber, the Pelagos 39 is $4,400. Which is more than a Black Bay Pro, but less than the larger Pelagos. Minase teams up with Fratello for a most excellent collaboration. Okay, this isn't really Geneva Watch Days news either, but it's timely. I guess I'll get to Geneva Watch Days next week. Minase is a unique brand that is rapidly growing in popularity. Based in Japan, they are independent, but an offshoot of Kyowa Co. Limited, a tool and watch component manufacturer founded in 1963. I think they're actually known for their drill bits, which is what their logo is actually based on. Their watches mix traditional Japanese craft with typically hyper-modern case designs and constructions. One thing that stands out is their movements and dials are sort of combined into a capsule that floats within the watch for quite a wild effect. They also utilize a design philosophy so that case components, such as lugs in many of their cases, if damaged, can be refinished or replaced individually, fitting together like an intricate puzzle. So although they're different pieces, there aren't also like screws all over the place. In fact, there's very few screws. There are there, but they're usually hidden on the case back. I reviewed the DeVito model not long ago and was really blown away by the complexity of the design and the unique language. There just isn't anything else like it. However, for a new collab with Fratello watches, they went a slightly different route, creating something that brings a lot of value to a lower price point. By using a more classic case design. Called the Peri M3, it features a 40mm barrel-shaped case with a seemingly traditional construction. However, it has been polished using Salat's machines, which is often referred to as Zaratsu polishing. You might be familiar with this from Grand Seiko, and this is a case that was previously only sold in Japan. Basically, it's a simple but stylish case with above-average finishing. But the dial really is what steals the show here. Rendered in the Pantone color of the year, it's a purplish hue titled Very Peri, as in periwinkle, which is taken from the name from a light purple flower. It features a stunning texture that looks like a combination of a hammered surface with sort of a grainy sunray texture. It also features applied markers, modern hour and minute hands, and a Dutch orange tipped second hand, which really rounds out the package. It is a funky watch that will definitely stand out in a crowd, a mix of purple and orange. The Fratello X Minase M3 comes in at €2,459.50 and is nearly the same in USD at time of recording. They're going to do the order window model. So starting September 6th for 1 week, all orders received will be produced, thus determining the edition number. Those watches will then be delivered in batches starting 3 months after the sale, with more batches following depending on how many orders they get. This is a really cool watch that will give all that want it, hopefully the opportunity to get it. And I think it's actually a really excellent way to get into the Minase brand, as their other watches start really kind of above $5,000, quickly getting into the kind of $7,000 to $10,000 range. So if you want to get a taste of what they're all about, coming in at around $2,500, this is a great opportunity to do so. And that's it for this week. Yep, only 2 stories, and neither actually about Geneva Watch Days. Next week, I promise we'll go through some highlights. Until then, keep reading Warner Wound daily to stay up to date, and I'll see you in the future.